Hassan Piker and Cenk Uygur are two of the US's best-known left-wing commentators, and they were due to arrive in the UK this week to feature in two panels at the South by Southwest London Festival taking place from today. Piker, who has the 14th highest-ranked channel on Twitch and was named as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential creators last year, was set to speak at a panel on how the American left learned to speak the internet, chaired by our own Ash Sarkar on Thursday. Meanwhile, Uygur, the founder and CEO of the Young Turks, which has a subscriber base of 6.6 million, and also Piker's uncle, was due to speak at the event on techno-feudalism on Wednesday. Uygur was also scheduled to speak at the Oxford Union on Friday as well, but in yet a further move in the direction of total control over political speech, neither will be appearing in person, if at all. That's after Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood banned the two from the UK, revoking their visas. Why? Well, in a stream on YouTube this morning, Cenk relayed the explanation that he had been given.
You'll never guess which government's criticism got me banned from the United Kingdom. You'll never guess it. I mean, you could take days trying to guess. Is it Iceland? Is it Paraguay? Is it Turkmenistan? Oh, gosh. Is it America? Is it Russia? Is it the UK? No. Oh, you guys already figured it out? That it's Israel? Yes. I know it's shocking, but you are correct. I got banned from the UK, not for criticizing the UK, but for criticizing Israel. And so I'm going to show you exactly what they said and break it down for you because it is beyond absurd.
Piker gave a similar account on Twitter, posting this. The UK has revoked my visa as well, all at the behest of Israel. The West is betraying liberal values for a genocidal fascist foreign government. Soon we will all become Israel. Piker and Uygur were due to travel to the UK on an electronic travel authorization, or ETA. That's a travel authorization available online to people who don't need visas for short visits to the UK, like US citizens. The Home Office has said that Piker and Uygur had the ETAs cancelled as their presence in the UK, quote, may not be conducive to the public good. Apparently they can apply for a full visa, but of course the ETA has been cancelled at such short notice that they'll never get one in time for the events. And while the Home Office is not saying exactly why their ETAs were cancelled, The Times reports this. The decision to block Uygur from travelling to the UK is understood to have been based on several grounds, including fears that his presence would risk exacerbating anti-Semitism due to his rhetoric since the October 7th attacks in 2023. This has included repeating classic anti-Semitic tropes, such as the claim that Israel controls America. He falsely claimed on his podcast in July last year that the Israeli lobby gave more to Congress than any other. He's repeatedly framed Israel's actions as genocide, barbaric, and savage, and accused Israel of using Jews as human shields. It's interesting to have those comments about genocide being included in the article. Plenty of people have described Israel's actions as such and have not been banned. And the idea that it is a classic anti-Semitic trope to say that Israel controls America, well, there's been a lot of spending by pro-Israel lobby groups and pro-Zionist lobby groups in the United States, especially when you look at the primary for example, with Thomas Massey and Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, etc., etc. And this was basically the same thing that Tucker Carlson said when being interviewed on the BBC on their flagship program. If there's such a lack of conducive to the public good to say such things as, what Tucker Carlson said, where he said Trump was a slave for Israel, essentially, was he's a slave to Benjamin Netanyahu, why was he given a prime slot on the public broadcast to say such things? But Cenk Uygur saying, in my mind, kind of less explosive things, I find that difficult to believe. Other reasons given to the Times include this. The decision to bar Uygur from the UK was also based on the exchanges with Piers Morgan on his YouTube channel, in which he dismissed evidence related to the grooming gangs in towns such as Rotherham, where official inquiries have identified an estimated 1,400 victims, and said concerns about the issue were Islamophobic. Now, did Uygur deny the existence of grooming gangs on Piers Morgan? Let's check the tape.
If there's a white gang of people who are raping people, arrest them. If there's a bunch of super powerful people who are raping American girls, arrest them. This is all super simple. But when we go to arrest anyone, demand to arrest anyone in the Epstein files, they go, oh, the Muslims, they're raping, it's the Muslims, it's all the Muslims. Everybody hate the Muslims. Yeah. It's an obvious diversion. That's why we're bringing up Israel and the Epstein files, because in the midst of the biggest story that there has been maybe in my lifetime, all of a sudden The grooming gangs pop back up. You want me to condemn them? Super easy. I condemn them. I condemn them 200%. I hope they're in prison. I hope they never get out of prison. But that's not the issue. You're not bringing it up because you're concerned about victims. You're bringing it up so you can say the dirty Muslims did it.
Now, that doesn't sound like a denial to me. Now, there's no information as of yet as to why Hassan Piker has been banned. But as Novara reported last week, a Labour MP had called on the Home Office to ban him from the UK. This is from that report. Labour MP for Hemel Hempstead, David Taylor, has called on the Home Office to revoke Piker's visa on the grounds that his presence would not be conducive to the public good. Taylor has a history of opposing pro-Palestinian voices. Last year, he objected to the renewal of Francesca Albanese's role as a special rapporteur for the occupied Palestinian territories and labelled her as anti-Semitic. Taylor was quick to claim credit for the ban today as well. Thank you, Home Secretary, for revoking Hassan Piker's visa. There's no reason to open our doors for those who seek to spread hate and division, especially to those who've supported a prescribed terror group. South by Southwest London must review its vetting policies so it doesn't happen again. Don't know as much evidence of him supporting terrorist groups, but that's by the by. Uygur was due to land in the UK today, where he was expected to debate pro-Israel commentator Shabbos Kestenbaum in studio on the Piers Morgan show tonight. That'll now go ahead, though remotely, with Kestenbaum posting this. I was meant to be on Piers Morgan debating Cenk Uygur this Monday in London. We just got word Cenk has been banned from the UK. This ban is completely unfounded and must be reversed. Free speech must always be protected and allowed. Shame on Keir Starmer. Reacting to the ban on Piker and Uygur, Novara's own Ash Sarkar said this. I was supposed to chair the Hassan Mahan discussion at South by Southwest this week, who's been banned from entering the UK by Shabana Mahmood. First of all, South by Southwest must facilitate a way for Hassan and Cenk to contribute remotely as a bare minimum refusal to comply with the government censorship. Secondly, it's abundantly clear that the government has put Israel at the heart of its policymaking around free expression, whether it's prescribing Palestine Action as a terrorist group, arresting hundreds of people for holding signs supporting it, or banning Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker from the UK for speech acts which would not be unlawful in this country. What we're witnessing is an authoritarian turn motivated by Labour's fears of being called anti-Semitic and fear of being called out for their position on the genocidal war on Gaza. This Labour government don't give a shit about community cohesion. Every time they ban someone, whether they're from the left or from the right, from entering the UK, they're creating resentment, suspicion, and blame. And South by Southwest London released this statement. We are aware that Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker aren't able to travel to the UK following a decision by the Home Office. Decisions on entry to the UK are a matter for the Home Office and the individuals concerned. South by Southwest London's role is to convene a broad range of diverse voices and perspectives. We remain focused on delivering a programme this week fostering open dialogue and exchange of ideas, and featuring more than 800 speakers, artists and screenings. The Oxford Union has pledged that Cenk's talk will go ahead, whether he's there in person or not, while reaffirming its commitment to free speech. I'm joined now from Los Angeles by Cenk Uygur himself. So what was your initial reaction on finding out that you'd been banned from the UK?
Nobody told me about it, so I went to the airport thinking it was going to be, the most normal flight I've ever had. There's no reason to suspect anything. And then the person at the counter said, sorry, but the British government has rejected your entry into the UK, so we can't let you board the flight. And I was kind of stunned by it. At first, I thought maybe it was a bureaucratic issue. But then about 15, 20 minutes later, the Times article came out saying that I'd been banned for criticizing Israel. That article is really interesting. So I don't know who in the British government they talked to, but they've added a couple of lines to it. I didn't realize that until you read it just now. In the original story, they did not have the lines about barbaric and savage and genocide. I stand by those completely. They're not remotely anti-Semitic. Those are exactly what the Israeli government has done. And by the way, exactly how tons of people have described Palestinians, for my entire life. And they've never been banned. And they make it seem like the Palestinians are occupying the Israelis, not the other way around. None of those liars have ever been banned. But the government decided to ban me for saying things that are empirically true. That statement that you read about how the Israeli lobby has given more to the American Congress than any other lobby, in the last election cycle, that is an empirical fact. So both the British government and apparently the Times are lying and saying that it isn't true when it definitely is true, and anyone can look it up. So if you say things that are true, apparently Britain will ban you and say that you're a threat to the public order. Because, I'm not saying it, but apparently they believe that their public order is based on fabricating lies to support the Israeli government.
Of course, we've seen very recently, over the last few years, the level of fealty from the US government towards Israel. Did you expect this kind of level of fealty to happen in the UK as well?
So, look, I'm not an expert on the UK, but am I overly surprised? No. So, a lot of Western governments have shown ridiculous deference to Israel, constantly funding them, constantly banning people from criticizing them under the guise of, being against anti-Semitism. No one, especially on the left, but really, when you talk about figures on the right like Tucker Carlson, Tom Massey, et cetera, nobody says anything against Jewish people. There's fringe people like Fuentes, et cetera, that do. Okay, you want to ban them? I don't agree with banning anyone. I wouldn't even ban Valentina Gomez, who said the most atrocious thing about Muslims. I believe that those ideas are easily defeated in the marketplace of ideas. I'm a massive believer in freedom of speech. I'm an American, right? But let's look at the double standard here. So you're allowed to say things about the Palestinians that aren't even true, but you're not allowed to say it about the Israelis, even if they are true. And so, look, one more thing about that. The British, for, as long as we could remember in the old days, said the gravest offense was to insult the king. And now they're saying the gravest offense is to insult Israel. Well, then who's the king?
It's a very, very, very astute point there. I mean, one thing that has been brought up here is it was not conducive to the public good because of what it might do about anti-Semitism in this country. In my opinion, I think that one of the worst things to do is, obviously, of course, there's the conflation of the Jewish community in this country and internationally with, the citizens of Israel, the government of Israel, the actions of the Israeli state, and claiming that criticism of the state or the actions of the state is therefore criticism of the Jewish community at large. And in my mind, that makes anti-Semitism worse, not better. Is that a position that you hold as well?
Absolutely. Now let's break down the absurdity further, right? So first of all, 63% of Jewish Americans are opposed to the current Israeli government. Are they all anti-Semites? Are they going to get banned from Britain? This is insane. Okay, now, when you say that all Jewish people are in favor of Israel's genocide, and hence, if you criticize Israel's genocide, you're against all Jewish people, you're greatly smearing Jewish people. I could argue that the British government's position is anti-Semitic. All Jewish people didn't vote for that. They didn't raise their hands and say that they're in favor of it. In fact, the great majority of Jews in America are opposed to it. So who's the anti-Semite? Who's smearing Jewish people? I would argue it's the Home Office of the UK government. And you can go on and on. Look, some of the best fighters for peace, and you've all seen it with your own eyes, are Jewish Americans and Jews from Britain, and by the way, Jews from Israel. Gideon Levy from Israel, Ben Cohen, Robert Greenwald, Dave Smith, Glenn Greenwald. I can go give you a million names, Bernie Sanders, on and on here in America. So why are you saying I'm not going to judge them based on their ideas and policies? I'm going to say they all are with the Israeli government. They all agree with everything that the Israelis have done. So if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing all of them. That is it's empirically incorrect. If anything, that's the trope. That's the anti-Semitism. Whereas I say, no, never blame Jewish people and never treat Jewish people or Muslim people or Christian people any different than you would treat anyone else. On the left, the most guiding philosophy we have, the very core of our philosophy, is that all people are equal. If you violate that idea to say Jewish people are not the same, they're different, or they're worse, then you're not really on the left, because that is not a position that any rational person on the left would have. On the other hand, if you say you're not allowed to criticize certain governments, well, we're not going to agree to that. That's insanity. So wait, is it racist against Turks to criticize the Turkish government? No. The government of Papua New Guinea, or the country of Papua New Guinea, has almost the exact population of Israel. Same size. If we criticize Papua New Guinea, are we anti-Papua New Guineist and will be banned from Britain? And if that's not the case, and we all know that's not the case, you could criticize literally every other country, including the United Kingdom and the US, then when the UK government says the only country you're not allowed to criticize is Israel, well, who's doing the singling out? Who's doing the discrimination? Who's the one that is separating out Israel as opposed to every other nation? And that's obviously the government of the United Kingdom. It's outrageous. It should be unacceptable. By the way, since the majority of Brits agree with me, you all have to be concerned. What if you go outside the country and then your own government says you have offended the new king? You share the dastardly opinions of Cenk Uygur that a genocide is bad. You must be pro-genocide. Otherwise, we'll declare you an anti-Semite and ban you from your own country. That's now on the board. That's now possible. And certainly, if you're, have issues with what Israel has done in not just in Gaza, but in Lebanon, where they've displaced 1 million people, ethnic cleansing again, that's the dictionary definition of ethnic cleansing. And what they're doing in Iran, what Britain is saying is, you're not welcome here. We don't want good, moral people from across the world who are against genocide. We think that you would cause a threat to our public order if you're against genocide. It just literally couldn't be more outrageous.
One of the, I think the themes that I'm getting in terms of what I've seen with the reaction here is that one of the statements that you made was, or that they're claiming that was one of the reasons why Shabana Mahmoud removed travel authorization in this case, was the idea that you say that, well, America's being controlled by Israel. And I think that a lot of people are looking at this from where I'm sitting and saying, well, if we're not being, if Western governments don't have the interest of Israel above the interest of their own citizens, or indeed the interest of citizens of friendly countries, why are things like this happening? Now, of course, in America, we saw the arrest of people like Mahmoud Khalil and Ramesa Ozturk, who, again, were arrested basically for having opinions that were critical of the Israeli government. In the UK, I feel like we've mentioned this idea that this has created martyrs in terms of the reaction to governments doing things in the interest of Israel. Is that the sense you're getting in the US as well?
It's overwhelming and it's indisputable. So first of all, you're not allowed to boycott, divest, or sanction Israel in America in 30 different states. You're allowed to be in favor of sanctioning or boycotting any other country. Only Israel is exempt. And that is for American citizens. Your freedom of speech is taken away. And you will lose your livelihood. You'll lose government contracts if you criticize Israel in that way. And not only that, guys like the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has traveled to Israel to sign bills taking away American rights from the citizens of Florida. And basically bragging to the Israelis, I took our freedoms away on your behalf. This is insane. These are things that are actually happening. Students on college campuses, not just people with visas. You're absolutely right about Mahmoud Khalil and Ozturk. Ozturk, all she did was write an op-ed criticizing Israel. So don't tell me you're not taking our speech rights away. You definitely are. And by the way, the Supreme Court has ruled for hundreds of years that everyone gets the same First Amendment rights in this country, even if they're not citizens, if they're here in America. So once you take it away for non-citizens, you're in essence taking it away from citizens as well. And now we're banned from the United Kingdom. So in every single instance where they're taking your speech rights away or sanctioning you, it is for criticizing the same government. There are no laws to ban you from criticizing Nicaragua or Tajikistan or Malaysia. Not a single other nation, not a single other law. But every single time it's about Israel, and they want you to ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears, and it is their most essential command. So Kafka and Orwell both have to be rolling in their graves here, thinking, my God, what has happened here? Although Orwell might be saying, told you.
I mean, it does seem to be pretty unbelievable. But then again, like what I'm getting from this is the betrayal of liberal values, liberal norms and civil liberties just being ripped up in favor of, again, a foreign government. It's unbelievable. I agree with you.
So Israel sometimes makes the absurd claim that they are defenders of Western civilization. That's why we should support them. And then they turn around and say, now destroy Western civilization in your own countries. Take away freedom of speech, taking away freedom altogether to travel. They've taken away my freedom of movement. I mean, and by taking away our freedom of movement, they've threatened all of your freedom. It's to send a message. It's not like they don't know that I can speak to the people of Britain anyway. I'm speaking to them right now. I've done now 3 British shows today. I've got another one coming up. Now, they're not doing it for that reason. They're doing it to intimidate you. So don't make the mistake that Cenk and Hassan made of speaking out against Israel. Otherwise, we're going to terrorize you. We're going to intimidate you. We're going to cancel you. We're going to ban you. So now here in America, Israel does give to 94% of Congress. They're the number one lifetime donor to Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Hakeem Jeffries, Mike Johnson, Chuck Schumer, literally all of our leaders. And then they say, if you're in the news business, you must ignore that. If you report facts, we'll call you an anti-Semite. Well, are they true or are they not true? They are true, but you're not allowed to say it. Well, what kind of media is this? So not only is the government in on this, and that's more understandable, they've all literally been legally bribed by the Israeli lobby to support Israel. Do you know, I'll come back to the media in a second, but do you know that AIPAC makes you sign a pledge saying that not only will you support Israel, but you will support Israel unconditionally. So no matter what they do, shut up and give American people's money to Israel. What kind of insane pledge is that? And I'll give you an amazing example of how they go after everyone and how this has nothing to do with religion. Yes, they spent $16 million against Tom Massey because he criticized Israel, $18 million against Jamal Bowman, $14 million against Cori Bush, $4 million against Marie Newman, $4 million against Nina Turner. Well, what is the one thing they have in common? They all criticized Israel, and then they were all defeated by giant amounts of money spent by the Israeli lobby. We have eyes and ears. You could tell us to ignore the evidence, but we're not going to. We can all see Gaza. We all know that it's a genocide, no matter how much the sick Israeli, British, and American governments defend it. But now let's turn to the media for a second. Why has no cable news anchor in America called it a genocide when it is obvious that it's a genocide, and almost every genocide scholar on the planet agrees that it's a genocide? The fact that it's ethnic cleansing is indisputable and inarguable, yet no prominent figure in American media has called it that. What is going on here? Has Israel intimidated, bullied, and their supporters bullied American media and Western media so much that they're afraid to tell you the news? And as the British government bans me, does that standard apply to all foreigners? Does it apply to citizens? Or does it just apply to the media? But think about it. Even if it just applies to the media, what the British government is saying is, if you accurately report the news, we will ban you. But if you don't accurately report it, you cover up the crimes of the Israeli government, then you're welcome to England and to Britain overall. Well, that's amazing. And that's not about the Israeli government. That's about the British government. And they apparently are saying very clearly, you're not free here anymore. You must bow your head to Israel. And if you don't, you'll have legal troubles in the UK and in the US.
Stephen, what did you make of this debacle?
Well, I was writing the Cortado this morning, which if you don't subscribe, you should subscribe. Go to the website to sign up. It's free. And I was writing it on Israel's extended invasion into Lebanon, and like the idea of this as an ally, right? This is a complete, completely transparent attempt to smash up any kind of peace deal between the US and Iran in an illegal war that the US began, and the economic impacts of that on us are only going to grow. So we're going to suffer economically as a result of Israel's actions in Lebanon, and of course in Gaza as well, where Netanyahu has just chucked the Gaza ceasefire out of the window by saying he wants to get 70% of the enclave. And I was writing this, and I was thinking back to an article that I wrote in October last year, around the anniversary of October the 7th, where I was really contemplating, what are the impacts going to be of this, our relationship with Israel over the coming year? And it was already fairly evident that it was going to be the complete disintegration of our most beloved liberal values of free speech, of political expression, of political movement, of things like direct action. It was already evident that there was going to be a problem because Palestine Action had been prescribed over the summer, and arrests of people had started to be made. And lo and behold, those arrests turned into thousands. Since then, we've seen criminal cases where the jury haven't been told that there's a terrorist connection, meaning that they've convicted people on a criminal charge, and will discover later that those people may well be charged under under terror law or terror penalties, without the jury having known any of those shenanigans were going on, and that being withheld from the jury by a court order, by the judge deliberately seeking not to allow them to know it, not allow them to know the defenses of conscience that the people charged with their criminal damage. We're not allowed to give those defenses. So all of that was very evident, and I was sort of making this list, and then suddenly this was added to the pile, to the long list, the list that just goes on and on and on. Two very well-known media commentators blocked from coming to the UK over, let's be real, their comments about Israel. Not conducive to the public good. Why? Because apparently the public good means not thinking about genocide, not thinking about the relationship between our state and Israel, between the US and Israel. And I think that one of the things that was really interesting about that interview that you gave there was that what's really at the bottom of it is that actually fundamentally there's going to come a point where if we want to defend liberalism in this country, we will have to push our governments to dislocate entirely, in foreign policy terms, from Israel, because it looks like the two things are just no longer compatible. You have a state that's committed a genocide, that won't follow, ethnic cleansing, invasions of Lebanon, repeated invasions of Lebanon, grabbing Syria as well, grabbing as much territory as they can in every moment they can, participating in an illegal war against Iran, blocking any attempt to end that. This is like, we cannot be sacrificing our liberal values for that nonsense. But that is in fact what our government is forcing us to do. They're forcing us constantly to retreat away from the things that we hold most dear as a nation: our freedom to speak, our freedom to act politically, to gather politically. All of that is in the retreat as the government has to invest more and more energy in keeping criticism of that whole mess at bay. And maybe the British public will put up with that. But the next thing that's going to happen, and this will be my prediction for the months ahead, is that the economic hit will come next. An economic hit caused by Israel's intransigence in Lebanon, in Gaza, which means that there will be no ceasefire. That will come next. And that will inevitably have political consequences for our craven government when it comes to Israel. And it's not just Labour, it was the Tories as well. Our craven sort of state apparatus or institution of government, which is so connected, I expect, via their connection to the US, to Israel as a state. At some point, all of that will have to go if we want to maintain the values that we hold dear.
Really important point you brought up with the Tories involved as well, because we know the threatening that David Cameron had as Foreign Secretary, towards the Chief Prosecutor of the ICC for even daring to go after figures from Israel. They were given special, as far as I can see, special status among international leaders purely on the grounds that they were Israeli leaders that allowed that, which gave what David Cameron, I can only assume, was what he believed was carte blanche to face down what should be, again, an international law, which is that you don't commit war crimes, right?
Right. No, exactly. You don't commit war crimes, and when you do, you get prosecuted. For them, that's the rule of international law. And as Cenk was saying there, it's okay to criticize any other country. It's okay to prosecute any other country for war crimes. But in this case, it seems like it's absolutely impossible to do so without there being some very, very dramatic blowback on yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. One question I will ask you. Obviously, we saw in the clip from Piers Morgan Uncensored there, where Cenk Uygur was like, we shouldn't be banning anybody. And Ash pointed out in her statement she made on Twitter, saying, well, whether you ban anyone from the left or the right, it will increase this level to which people feel like they're not represented by governments. On this very show, a couple of weeks back, we talked about Valentina Gomez being banned from the UK to speak at Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally. And of course, she's a very far-right figure. The things she said about Muslims are absolutely, beyond the pale, in my opinion. And the government had banned her, and I think 11 other people, or maybe 10 other people, 11 in total, from the kind of level of travel authorization to this country. Although they were speaking at what was going to be a rally where previously, I think the last time they did this, Elon Musk essentially tried to foment insurrection with his statements there. Do you think the left is being hypocritical, or has been historically hypocritical when it comes to issues like this?
I think it depends on what figure you're talking about in the left. I know that Aaron I think has in the past said we should have a constitution which protects freedom of speech. I myself am, pretty much, generally, fairly open on freedom of speech. I mean, I do think that there are particular occasions, where you're incentivizing violence or calling for violence against individuals. I think that. But I think there's too much of a sort of interest in thinking that any kind of speech which I don't like about a group who I happen to like or have no problem with is therefore speech which is likely to cause violence. I think that's wrong. I mean, I don't know what these 11 people are said to have said. Gomez, I absolutely know because we've covered her on the show a few times. I actually like the way that she was treated on Piers Morgan, where in a sense, he didn't tolerate her absolute right to speech because he sort of cut her off and threw her off at one point. Maybe that's, look, there's got to be some way in which the British government can defend the public from people who would like to come here and cause violence. And I think that's fair. I think that the suggestion that Hassan or Cenk wanted to come here and cause violence is absolutely outrageous. And I think it's really clear that, is not conducive to the public good, doesn't have bear any suggestion of violence or anything like that. And none of the quotes that were given to the Times bears any suggestion of calls to violence of any kind. I'm not sure that you can say the same of some of those people who were blocked by the government from coming to the Tommy Robinson protest. But if it was just for that, it was wrong too, right? If it's wrong on the left, it's wrong on the right. You can have a debate about whether or not the meaning of the statements that were made are the same. If that's an honest debate and you come to the conclusion that actually what is said is not about violence, then the British government made a mistake in their far right cases too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the basic position should always be benefit of the doubt should be given to the speaker. Now, I do think when it comes to the Kingdom rally, I can appreciate arguments going, well, historically violence happens at Tommy Robinson rallies. The more people that you have who have incendiary rhetoric or the very kind of stochastic rhetoric that could lead to more violence increasing, right? And that seems to me a little bit more defensible than someone who's coming to record a podcast, right? But even so, I think that always the benefit of the doubt has to be given to the speaker in these cases.
But actually, that's the job of the police and the job of the government, right? The job of the police and the job of the government is to, for example, if there is a threat of violence to one community because of some speech, let's say marches of some kind, whether on the right or the left, it's the job of the government and the job of the police to securitize those people to make sure that actually there isn't any consequence to them. And I think it's just become all too easy for the government to say, no, it's the speech or it's the protest or it's a political gathering, which is the source of the problem, without actually any evidence in the case of, the pro-Palestine marches.
They're openly saying, well, if you say globalized intifada, you are essentially being a stochastic terrorist.
Right.
Saying, well, Keir Starmer said openly, right, when you and I both know that's not the case.
Right. Well, I would like to see some evidence that links the saying of that at the march to to an uptick in violence somewhere else, or the saying of something on a far right march to the uptick of violence somewhere else. If you suspect that there's going to be, then the police and the government should put in the resources to protect those communities. But it shouldn't automatically be the knee-jerk reaction to suppress speech in order to protect those communities. You have to find the balance between protecting the right to speech, whether you like it or not, and protecting those communities.
And also, as always, I'll put in the caveat that free speech is about the government. Free speech is about stopping what the government does to you, right? People not wanting to privately associate with you is not the same as having your freedoms, your civil liberties, what you're allowed to do under law being challenged. Just before people try and compare this with getting banned off Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. You don't have to hang out with people who say things you don't like, even if they're not violent things. You don't have to hang out with anyone that you don't like. It's,
Yeah, cancellation and restriction of civil liberties, two different kettles of fish in my mind.
Two different things, yeah.